How's it going, everyone? This is the George here. And yes, I'm back to streaming. This is the first stream in a month. And today we are going to be talking about something a bit different on the channel. We are going to be talking about Legend of Zelda. That's right, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite video game franchises. We're taking a break from talking movies and television and focusing on one of my favorite gaming series. Now, I'm just going to give you all a heads up. I have not played the new game that came out today, Tears of the Kingdom, just yet. I am looking forward to playing that game. I'm very excited. The trailers look phenomenal, and I hear that the game is phenomenal. I've been replaying Breath of the Wild before I play Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm having a blast replaying Breath of the Wild. But yeah, we're going to try something new on this channel because there's more to pop culture than just superhero stuff. And so I'm just going to be talking about my thoughts on my favorite Zelda games, some of my favorite Zelda dungeons, favorite moments playing a Legend of Zelda game. But I'm not going to be talking about every single Legend of Zelda game because, first of all, while I have played mostly every Zelda game, there are a few I haven't played yet. I haven't played any of the Four Sword games, nor have I played the Oracle games. If they ever remake those games on the Switch or whatever future Nintendo systems come out, I'm definitely going to be buying them though. But I have played all the other Zelda games. There are some that I've still been playing or I haven't gotten to play in a while. There are some that I've just replayed so many times. There are some that I was just one and done. But for the most part, I've always enjoyed this series. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be talking about the Hyrule Warrior games as well, although I have played them and I have enjoyed them. But I'm definitely going to be focusing on at least the main Zelda games. So if you are a fan of Legend of Zelda, or you're a fan of this channel in general, please this this stream and recommend it to someone. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe right now. I am at 127 subs, and I want to get to 150 before we get to summer. Summer's getting closer. But I do want to thank everyone who has subscribed and watched. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to start by talking about how I discovered the Legend of Zelda franchise, what it means to me, and then we'll go from there. So, when it came to video games as a kid, before I got the GameCube, I was mostly a PlayStation 1 kid. We got the PlayStation 1 and I played PlayStation 1 games. It wasn't until I think like 20 years ago around Christmas we got a GameCube, and with the GameCube came the Legend of Zelda the Collector's Edition. And with the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition came 4 Zelda games. It was the first 2 Legend of Zelda games that had come out, and Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and also 20-minute demo of Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which was coming out, or I guess was new at the time. And for those of you who don't really know, I'm going to share a picture of what it looks like. Hold on. And by the way, I think like this is the only time you would probably ever get some of these Zelda games on the GameCube. So this was basically the box for it. I don't want to. I know where the box is at home, but I don't want to like get it out. But basically, this was the collector's edition. So with it came the first Legend of Zelda, Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It was not Master Quest. Master Quest is not on there. I think that's a separate purchase. And Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And I remember I was not a good gamer back as a kid. I struggled when it came to video games. So I remember when it came to Ocarina of Time, I used to get stuck. I didn't go to the Great Deku Tree at first. I would go into the Lost Woods. Majora's Mask, the apocalyptic thing like shook me up at first. So I would mostly play the first two Legend of Zelda games, and I remember remember for a while the farthest I would get in the original Legend of Zelda was the first dungeon. Adventures of Link used to annoy me, but one of the things I used to play a lot was probably that 20-minute demo of Wind Waker. Well, and I remember you had to pick three levels. You can either go to the first dungeon, the Dragon Roost Caverns, the Forsaken Fortress, or Windfall Island. And I remember I didn't really know it was a demo at the time. I thought it was like the other Zelda games. So I remember the first time I did it, it was the Dragon Roost Cavern dungeon, and I remember I made it pretty far, and then all of a sudden the screen turned to white, and it went back to the opening credits, and I was like, "What's going on here?" But I think like a year later, for my next birthday, I got Wind Waker, and I remember I used to play Wind Waker a lot. It took me a good year to get through Wind Waker because I did take some breaks in between. I would go like a month or two without playing it because there was other things to do. But I remember I used to play Wind Waker a lot. I used to get like the heart pieces. I used to try to get the treasure charts. And the first time I played Wind Waker, I didn't get every single piece or treasure chart. But I remember just being so into the game. And then within the year I completed the game. And it was right after I completed Wind Waker where I was like, I want to revisit Ocarina of Time. And when I played Ocarina of Time right after I played Wind Waker, not realizing that it was a prequel, I basically took it more seriously and got through the dungeon right away, which was the Deku tree inside the Deku tree. And hey, Arkham, thank you for tuning in. And then, like, I would go further in the game. And I remember Ocarina of Time took me longer to get through than Wind Waker. Not because I was trying to be a perfectionist at the time and complete everything. I didn't complete every single thing. I didn't get every single heart piece or upgrade. It was the Shadow Temple that used to freak me out as a kid. The Shadow Temple took me a long time to get through. But I eventually got through it. And then I moved on to play Majora's Mask. And at the same time I was playing Majora's Mask, because Ocarina of Time took me a while to play, I got the DS and got to play Phantom Hourglass. So I was playing two different Zelda games at the same time. I was playing Phantom Hourglass, which was the sequel to Wind Waker, and Majora's Mask, which was the sequel to Ocarina of Time. Phantom Hourglass didn't really take me that long to complete, but it was Majora's Mask that took me a while. Because that game also freaked me out. I just get freaked out pretty easily as a kid. But then I would later get Twilight Princess, and that was another game that took me a while, but eventually I completed it. Well, I wouldn't say it took me a while. Well, it actually didn't take me as long, but then again, with Twilight Princess, I wasn't as a big completionist at the time. But once I go back to replay Twilight Princess, I make sure I get every heart piece, every upgrade that I could get. And later on, I'd buy used versions of the DS not DS, the Game Boy games, Minish Cap. I got Link to the Past for the Game Boy Advance, and I used to play those quite often. Them and Phantom Hourglass were easy to like bring everywhere to play. I remember I would sometimes play them on the way to school. Like I would sneak it into my backpack and play on the way to school. And then obviously Spirit Tracks, Skyward Sword would come out, and all the other games, including Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was one of the main reasons I would buy the Switch. And I played other games on the Switch, and I love the other games, but it's Breath of the Wild that I probably spent the most time playing on the Nintendo Switch. But yeah, Legend of Zelda has been very important to me when it comes to video games. I would say even if I chose to never buy PlayStation games again or Xbox games again, I would probably still buy Nintendo just for Legend of Zelda. And Marcus, I respect your opinion. You don't have to like Legend of Zelda. You can find it overrated. I just love the Zelda franchise. But yeah, I would probably still buy Nintendo, not just for Mario, but for Legend of Zelda. This is a franchise that I just love playing, love revisiting. And it's a franchise that I have knowledge of. Maybe not all the knowledge, but it's also like when I first started watching YouTube, I used to watch a lot of Legend of Zelda theory videos, Legend of Zelda walkthrough videos. I remember it was Ocarina of Time that was the first time I looked up a walkthrough for a Legend of Zelda game. It was for the Water Temple because the Water Temple took forever, but yeah, that's basically like when it comes to Legend of Zelda, like how I feel about the Zelda franchise. I played a lot of these games, and there's some games that, well, I wouldn't say there were some. There's the only one that I was really disappointed with was Triforce Heroes. Like it wasn't bad, but compared to the other ones, that was like one and done for me. But I played the Hyrule Warrior games as well, and I enjoyed those games. I'm not saying it's the pinnacle of gaming. I would say it's more like for me just like my comfort game, like where I can escape and hey, Blinded Braille. But it's just like Zelda has always been my personal escape. Like it's been an escape that not even movies can top for me at times, or a lot of movies. Like I remember playing Twilight Princess around the time I was going into middle school. And middle school was my first few months of middle school, I wouldn't say were bad. It was kind of stressful. But I remember playing Twilight Princess right after school, and it would just be like my comfort to get away from the dumb middle school stuff that was going on. And the same thing for Skyward Sword. Like it was my escape from high school because Skyward Sword came out around my first year of high school, so it was kind of like my escape. I'm going to probably be talking about these games. Yeah, Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask are in my top five. Skyward Sword, I like Skyward Sword, but I'm going to get into that as well. But the two other games that are definitely in my top five in no particular order, besides Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, are Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. So I'm going to pull up the Zelda site real quick because I also have the timeline up because the timeline's quite interesting. And I never really paid much attention to the Zelda timeline. Like, it wasn't until I played Ocarina of Time where I realized that, oh, wow, this is a prequel to Wind Waker. Like, obviously, Skyward Sword was like the beginning of the timeline. And with Skyward Sword, I do like Skyward Sword. It's just compared to the other ones, I don't go back and replay it that much. I thought I used to struggle with the Wii motion at times, and I remember some of the enemies used to annoy me trying to kill, like the Lizafos. Sorry if I mispronounced them. The lizards that would like taunt you just used to annoy the crap out of me. Some of the boss fights used to annoy me. It had some good dungeons. I liked a lot of the dungeons. I liked the dungeon when you were on the pirate ship. I thought that was a great dungeon. Although the boss was a big disappointment. But I also like those versions of Link and Zelda. I like the characters in those games. I thought the villain Giraham was a great villain. The boss fights, I would say I did enjoy some of the boss fights. The Giraham ones I enjoyed a lot. Yeah, I definitely need to check it out on the Switch then. I don't have anything against the Wii, but to be honest, Skyward Sword was the only reason I bought the Wii. I have Twilight Princess on GameCube. Yeah, I know Twilight Princess is also a sequel, which obviously gets into the timeline of stuff. So Minish Cap, I'm kind of surprised Minish Cap was like the second game on the timeline. And I used to like playing this game quite a bit. Nothing really special though, but it's definitely one of my favorite Game Boy games. I didn't really play I never played Four Swords. Now, Ocarina of Time, to me, like I said, this was the game that I used to struggle with. But then once I got through Wind Waker, I got the courage to play Ocarina of Time again. Yeah, I love Wind Waker. Wind Waker was my introduction. If you missed what I was saying, blinded, like that was my official introduction to Legend of Zelda. But yeah, it was completing Wind Waker that pushed me to finally complete Ocarina of Time and take it seriously. Like I got more knowledge of the Zelda formula. And right after I played Ocarina of Time, right after I played Wind Waker, I went right to Ocarina of Time. And right away I completed the first dungeon. Although the Skulltulas used to freak me out. I think that was another reason why it took me a while to complete Ocarina of Time. The Skulltulas kind of freaked me out. But I really liked the the open world of Hyrule. It was different from the open world of Wind Waker. I still gotta play it on 3D. Like I have it on GameCube because I have the collector's edition. But I've seen it on 3D and it looks great. I still gotta play the Master Quest version. I think like if I ever buy another version, if I buy Ocarina of Time again, I need to get it on Master Quest. Is Master? I think Master Quest is on the 3DS. Yeah, it used to be bad for me as a kid. That was one of the reasons why it took me forever to get through the Shadow Temple because the hallway of Skulltulas used to freak me out, but it was just like the other stuff in the Shadow Temple. But yeah, like I also said before, this was the first game that I had to look up a walkthrough. I had to get a walkthrough for the Water Temple. I hated that temple. I like the forest and the fire temples a lot. Um, the Volvagia boss fight is probably my favorite in that game. Okay, maybe I need to find a version of it on 3DS one day, even if it's like a used copy. Uh, I remember though the Shadow Temple used to freak me out so bad that as soon as I got the Hoover boots, I would just go right to the Gerudo Valley, get through the Gerudo Fortress, and get to the Spirit Temple because I used to procrastinate on the Shadow Temple. And the various videos that have been made about Legend of Zelda theories on the Shadow Temple, on the dark secrets of it, has freaked me out even more as I've gotten older. Now I know this is a fictional world, but still, that some of the side quests in this game like the Happy Mask Salesman, Selling the Masks, I used to enjoy those as well. That's another thing. I love the Legend of Zelda side quests, like the big side quest where you get the big Goron sword. I remember at first it kind of annoyed me, but then like as I went through it, I enjoyed it a lot more. Thanks, Arkham. I recommend like if you ever have the spare time to try to get into it, but I understand it's not for everyone. But the soundtrack as well. I used to love the soundtrack to these games. The Gerudo Valley theme to me was probably one of my favorite themes. The Shadow Temple theme used to freak me out. Um, the Fire Temple. I remember there was controversy with the Fire Temple theme, but the collector's edition didn't have that controversial theme. Oh wow! Yeah, I can't wait to play Tears of the Kingdom. I really can't. The thing is, it's like while the Shao Temple freaks me out, I find it to be the most fascinating dungeon in the Zelda franchise. Like to me, it's the most fascinating temple just because of like the dark secrets about it. On the Gold Skulltula quest, I remember doing that, and the rewards you would get were great, but I think the last reward was like 10 rupees or something. It was very disappointing because it's like you can just easily like skip over that if like the last prize is not a lot of rupees. But yeah, Ocarina of Time, while it wasn't my first in the Zelda franchise, and this was the one I procrastinated a lot with, I still love playing this one. I remember I replayed it in college and still had a blast with it. Like there's some games that never get old, and this is one that never does. And to me, like this was where I started seeing some of the darker parts of the Zelda franchise because the 7 years later was pretty dark. Like the Redeads, like in like the Hyrule Castle town, which is destroyed. There were two things that did annoy me with Ocarina of Time, though. It was the owl that would give you information and would be like, "Would you like to hear that again?" And Navi, I don't know. Navi just used to annoy me. It's like I kind of get what we're doing, Navi. I don't need your hints. Now, this is also the Zelda game that apparently the timeline splits. So there's the hero is triumphant, where you got the child and the adult, and then you got the hero is defeated. I'm just gonna go through the hero is defeated one pretty quickly. I think this is like the one where I think Nintendo Nintendo needed a timeline just to explain some of the games, some of the 2D games like Link to the Past, Link's Awakening, Oracle, the Oracle games, which I haven't played. And I like Link to the Past a lot. I played Link's Awakening on the Switch. I enjoyed that one as well. They're not my favorites though. Link Between Worlds I thought was pretty good. Triforce Heroes I kind of skipped over. And the first two Zelda games, Adventures of Link used to frustrate me. Yeah, it's three timelines. Um, the three timelines. Yeah, I'm kind of zooming through this timeline because this is the one I'm not that crazy about. Okay, I get you, Arkham. Um, See, these are the two that I remember playing on the collector's edition: Legend of Zelda and Adventures of Link. I never really got far on them though. Maybe one day I'll go far on them. I'll go further. It's like of these games, the I still have to go back and replay Link's Awakening to complete it. Link to the Past was the one I completed. Link Between Worlds, I still need to go back and revisit. Like there's certain games that like I am passionate about in the Zelda franchise, and there's certain ones that I'm just I like them, but I'm not gonna dedicate a lot of time to play them. Like I'll go back, for example, Minish Cap. I can probably replay. I don't really have a lot to say about it though. Like I can replay Minish Cap, and like I do replay Minish Cap from time to time. It's probably my favorite of the 2D Zelda games. Um, I'm not the best gamer, Arkham. I don't know if gaming streams are in the cards for me. Maybe in the future when I can get a copy of Tears of the Kingdom. I definitely want to play it. I'm definitely going to spend the money on it. Usually, when it comes to video games, I wait until holidays. But for Tears of the Kingdom, like that's something I actually want to buy and use my money on. I saw like some of the gameplay for Tears of the Kingdom, and it does look incredible. But yeah, no, I am definitely going to be getting Tears of the Kingdom. Hopefully, like sometime like this month or or June. I'm not waiting until my birthday. Some of these games, Zelda games, I got for my birthday, like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. I got Skyward Sword for Christmas. Breath of the Wild was one that I did spend my money on. I bought it on Black Friday when I got my DS, not my DS, my Switch. You're still waiting for yours. But and yeah, I never played the Four Sword games, so I'm not really gonna talk about the Four Sword games. So now we got two eras, and these are the games that I love replaying in these timeline. These are the games that I've probably played so many times. I'm gonna start with the child era. Majora's Mask, another one that I've replayed many times. I remember there was a time when I prefer Majora's Mask over Ocarina of Time. To me, it's kind of hard to pick. They're definitely in my top five favorite. I have a distinct top three Legend of Zelda games, which I'll talk about. And yeah, I heard like Four Swords is just okay. See, I have a copy of Four Swords with Link to the Past, but it says like I need other players to play with. And it's like I bought Link to the Past to play Link to the Past, not Four Swords, on my Game Boy. And it's been ages since I played Link to the Past. But yeah, Majora's Mask, I remember like the moon apocalypse thing really threw me off. Like, oh wow, they're actually going for that in Legend of Zelda game. And the Happy Mask salesman used to freak me out. And I remember in Ocarina of Time, maybe not the first time I played it, like he used to get, but like when I played it a second time, I wanted to be a smartass and see like what would happen if I didn't give the Happy Mask salesman back his money. And he got really annoyed and his eyes were like red scary. And like I remember he freaked me out in Majora's Mask as well. Like when he shakes you when you don't get his mask back. And I remember I used to have to like use like that version of the Song of Time that slows down time to make it easier for myself. And it's weird. The first time I played Majora's Mask, the first temple was the Woodfall Temple. It took me like the 3 day cycle to complete it. Now, whenever I play it, I get it done so quickly. But even though like the mechanics are still the same for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, it still feels unique to me because you have to complete it in a certain amount of time. Otherwise, you got to go back in time. You got so many more side quests. You got all these masks that have these different powers. You got the Deku mask, the Goron mask, the Zora mask. I love the Zora mask. I love like how quick I can swim. What freaked me out about Majora's Mask was probably the Yakana Canyon. The bottom of the well took me forever to complete. Like there's something about these bottom of the wells in these Legend of Zelda games that just freak me out. The bottom of the well in Ocarina of Time messed me up. Like I'm gonna be honest. Once I get the Lens of Truth in Ocarina of Time at the bottom of the well, I'm out of there. I don't go visit any of the other rooms or any of the parts of the well. I just get the Lens of Truth and I'm out of there. In Majora's Mask, you have to actually complete the bottom of the well to get to the iconic castle. But I remember like how dark Majora's Mask was even as a kid. Because when you're playing the Song of Healing, you're basically putting these guys to rest. You're putting the Zora to rest, the Goron to rest. Then you find out at the end of the game that the Deku Butler's son died. Like, and like the mask is his spirit. The Pirate's Fortress had one of the best soundtracks in that game. I really like the Pirate Fortress in that game. And I remember the fairies, finding all the fairies in the dungeon. It would take me forever to find all those fairies. And I wouldn't even get all the upgrades with it. But yeah, no, like Majora's Mask, even though like there's really only 4 dungeons or 4 temples, and there's a lot of side quests, it's still a great game. Like I love how even though like they didn't have that much time to work on it, they put together a damn great game. Like to me, this is like the Toy Story 2 of video games because Toy Story 2 was kind of made in a similar frame where they didn't have a lot of time to work on the movie, but they still put together a great movie. In this case, they put together a great game. And Majora's Mask, I replayed this game many times. Um, the version I have on it, because I know it's on the N64 and the 3DS, my mind was drawing a blank. The version I have on it, the collector's edition, is on the GameCube. So I played a lot on the GameCube, or I played my GameCube games on my Wii. What reviews? I didn't hear any of the reviews for the new Zelda game being low. That's weird. I never heard that. From what I hear, it's getting some of the best reviews of the Zelda franchise. I don't know if there's ever been a Legend of Zelda game that got bad reviews, if I'm being honest. I can see Triforce Heroes getting mixed reviews, but other than that, like I feel like every Zelda game's gotten great reviews. But yeah, Majora's Mask, even though the mechanics are still the same with Ocarina of Time, it's still a great game. The boss fight with Majora was hard. Like this to me, that was the most difficult boss fight in a Legend of Zelda game because Majora has like 3 different forms, and the first 2 forms weren't bad, but the last form was just frustrating to complete. The boss fights in Ocarina of Time, like the first one, the Woodfall Temple, where you're fighting against the warrior guy, was pretty easy. Second one in Snowhead Temple, when you're facing off against the one that's a bull, not that bad. It was the boss fights at Great Bay Temple and in the Stone Tower that used to frustrate me in that game as well. I'm trying to think, like, did Ocarina of Time really have any? Ocarina of Time, the boss fights didn't really frustrate me, except maybe in Jabu Jabu's the Jabu Jabu one and the Water Temple. It was the water theme ones. It's always the water theme bosses that just annoy me. And by the way, the Water Temple boss was such a downer because to me the temples had really good bosses in those games. Like the first 2 bosses, you have Phantom Gam, you have Volvagia the dragon, and then like you have this boss, and you're wondering what boss has this big effect on Zora's domain that's causing all these problems. And then you find out that it's this giant aquatic amoeba Morpha. To me, that was the worst boss in Ocarina of Time, or tied with the boss from in Jabu Jabu's belly. Especially because the next 2 bosses for the Zelda temples were very unique. Like the boss in the Shadow Temple, Bongo Bongo, I'm pretty sure his name was, like that would, yeah, Bongo Bongo. Like the impact that he had on Kakariko Village, and that one was a hard one, but it never frustrated me. And then you face off against the boss in the Spirit Temple, the 2 witches that are Ganon's moms. And by the way, Spirit Temple, that was another one of my favorite dungeons because that was like a dungeon you can complete as both a child and an adult. But Yeah, overall, like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, two of my top five favorite Zelda games. But now we're gonna get into one of the games that's in my top three favorites. Twilight Princess. And I played this on the GameCube. I haven't played it on the Wii. Or it came out on the Wii U, I think. Has it come out on the Switch? I don't know if it's ever come out on the Switch. If it's on the Switch, let me know. But I'm pretty sure it's on the Wii U. I never bought the Wii U, so I really don't know how it is on the Wii U. But yeah, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess. Now, this is a very interesting game because this was actually supposed to be a sequel to Wind Waker, which we're going to get to after this one. But because people weren't a big fan of the cartoony designs for Legend of Zelda, even though people don't mind it anymore, but at the time it annoyed people, they went back to the more realistic design. And to me, this was a game I spent so many nights on. Like, I would stay up so late to try and complete Twilight Princess or complete certain parts of it. This had a lot of emotional moments, and I think this was the first Zelda game that was rated T for teen. I know I'm surprised that Majora's Mask wasn't the first Zelda game that was rated T for teen. That this was the first one, because to me, I think both of them are equally dark in their own way. But again, I think things were a bit different back then. But yeah, Twilight Princess. This was one of those games where they changed things around with the Zelda franchise. You got to be as a wolf. Your partner Midna, one of my favorite partners in a Zelda game. If I'm going to be honest, she's one of those characters that grew on me over time, and I loved her commentary and her banter and her backstory. Like, when you find out that she's the Twilight Princess, like when Twilight Princess first came out, I had no idea why it was called Twilight Princess. Like, I thought maybe it was because Zelda's gonna be princess of a new king of Hyrule that's covered in twilight. But Midna was really the Twilight Princess. I really like. I can be honest. I like all the dungeons in this Zelda game. Like, usually there's a dungeon in a Zelda game that I don't like, but I like the ones here. Like, I thought Lake Bed Temple, which was in Lake Hyla, like the Water Temple. So you're thinking, oh, it's gonna be another Water Temple scenario. Didn't frustrate me. That one, I actually didn't need to walk through it when I got through quickly. I think the only thing that I got stuck on with Twilight Princess, like if I'm gonna go back and remember, because it's been a while. Like, the first time I played it was like, I think like 15, 16 years ago. Try to remember what it was, because there was something I was stuck on Twilight Princess for a while. It wasn't even a dungeon. It was before the City in the Sky Temple. It was after you restored Link's friend Lila. I think that was her name. Lila's memories. It was the owl statues thing. It was basically like after you store like the girl's memories, because it took a while to get that rod's powers working, because it was the rod that you found in the Temple of Time, and it took a while to work around to get its powers back, because it would only work in the Temple of Time. Yeah, the thing is that Twitter opinions I don't trust. I mean, the thing is, everyone's views, whether it's on movies, television, or video games, is subjective. But I would probably say that the overall thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom, based on critics and fans, has been overwhelmingly positive, which I love to hear, because this is a game that we've been waiting 6 years for. But back to Twilight Princess. I also remember remember like the moves that you made. Like obviously some of the mechanics are a bit similar to Wind Waker because this was supposed to be a sequel to Wind Waker. But yeah, I remember the hero spirit who would teach you. It was basically like the hero times ghost or spirit would teach you the moves. And it took me a while to realize that that was the hero of time, the hero of time forgotten. Because you gotta remember, in the child timeline, this is the child timeline. To kind of explain the Legend of Zelda timeline. So the child timeline were Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Four Swords Adventure, which takes place many years after Twilight Princess, I guess. This is the timeline where Zelda sends Link back as a kid, and he warns Zelda and all of Hyrule about what Ganondorf's about to do. Because in this game, the thing about Twilight Princess is at first you think Zaint, who basically forces Zelda to surrender her kingdom, is the villain. But then when you're trying to find the Mirror of Twilight and you find out what happens to the Mirror of Twilight, you find out that Ganondorf, like for Ganondorf's treason, he got executed by the Seven Sages. It ain't the Seven Sages that was in the adult timeline because this is the child timeline. The events in the adult timeline didn't take place. I know it sounds like a lot and it's confusing, but it honestly isn't. If anything, it's the hero's defeated timeline that's more confusing. But basically, because Link warned what would happen with Ganondorf, Ganondorf never became king of Hyrule. He never took over Hyrule. So basically, Twilight Princess is like the alternate to Wind Waker. What was supposed to be a sequel to Wind Waker became like an alternate universe in another timeline. But I also like that they improved the mechanics in this game when it came to riding Epona the horse. Like you can use your sword while riding Epona. Like they improved the sword fighting in this game. They also had some really good weapon choices in this game, like the long shot, which was like I guess like this game's version of the hook shot. You got to use two of them instead of just getting like an upgraded like graded one. No, the claw shot. The long shot is the upgraded one you get in Ocarina of Time. I almost got confused. It was the claw shot that you get. I don't know why they didn't just call it the hook shot in this one. I honestly don't. Were there any bosses in this one that annoyed me? Um, the one in the Temple of Time freaked me out. That giant spider freaked me out. Um, I like the one the temple and the city in the sky. Which, if there was a dungeon that did take me a while to complete, that was the dungeon, but I still liked it. Um, not the Lake Bed Temple one. It was the one in the Snow Peak. The Snow Peak Ruins boss used to annoy me when playing Twilight Princess. Now that dungeon, I would say if there was a dungeon, my least favorite dungeon in the game, it was Snow Peak Ruins. That was probably my least favorite dungeon. I didn't hate the dungeon, but it was definitely my least favorite. Um, I'm gonna pull this down to kind of show who the boss is that used to annoy me in Twilight Princess. Let's stop that screen. Sorry, it's taking me a while. This is what happens when you don't stream for a while. You're a bit slow. I gotta be doing more streams again. So yeah, the this one, Blitzetta. Yeah, this boss fight I hated. Like this was the only boss fight I really hated in Twilight Princess, if I'm gonna be honest. There was no other one that frustrated me in this one. I like the Zaint one when you're fighting Zaint because you're using all the different weapons that you acquire throughout your journey. You're also fighting in in the arenas that you fought early on. Like when you're fighting Zane for the first time, you're using the Gale Boomerang in the same area that you fought your first major boss in Ocarina of Time. Not Ocarina of Time, in Twilight Princess. Um the thing with Ganondorf's inclusion in the game, I remember as a kid at first I was like they kind of just threw Ganondorf in there to just have Ganon because I thought Zane was fine as the overall villain. At the same time, though, it kind of makes sense that Ganon would use Zane as a puppet of some sorts. And to me, this game and Wind Waker had to me the two saddest endings for a Zelda game. Because Midna leaving at the end of this game, because you grew to like this character that was joining Link on his adventure, and then she has to leave, and then the mirror breaks. To me, this and Wind Waker had the saddest endings as far as the Zelda game goes. I probably though, like I said, this is one of my top three favorite Legend of Zelda games. I've probably this and Wind Waker I probably replayed the most out of any Zelda game. This is probably my second favorite Legend of Zelda game behind Breath of the Wild. And I feel like everyone's gonna have a different opinion of a Zelda game. Like I know there's still some people that say Ocarina of Time is still their favorite. Some people Breath of the Wild. Some people Twilight Princess. But yeah, this was my favorite for a while until Breath of the Wild came out. And even when I first played Breath of the Wild, I was still saying to myself, I enjoyed Twilight Princess more. But Twilight Princess definitely one of my all-time favorite Zelda games. One of my all-time favorite games in general. I'm trying to think before I get into the adult timeline because I don't have anything to say about Four Swords Adventure because I haven't played that one. Like I think the Four Swords games they need to do remakes on, as well as the Oracle games, because those are the ones I haven't played yet, and I feel like those are next on the list of remakes. But I'm trying to remember. I don't know. Once I think of it, I'll let you guys know. But yeah, Twilight Princess, phenomenal Zelda game. The one that I spent a lot of time playing. Another one I spent a lot of time playing. It had a great soundtrack. It had great supporting characters. I like the supporting characters that surrounded Link in this game. His friends in his village, the allies he would make in Hyrule Castle. Midna. I thought Zane was a solid villain, and I've learned to appreciate how they handled Ganondorf more in this game. I think how Zelda was also handled was fine as well. So we're gonna get into the adult timeline. So let's see. I'm gonna bring up the timeline again as well. And now we're gonna talk more about the Zelda game that got me into this franchise. The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. And to me, this is a game that I think is underrated when it comes to how dark of a game it was. Because I get it, Toon Link, very cartoony, some childish moments in the game, but like here's basically the events leading up to Wind Waker. So Wind Waker takes place in the adult timeline of The Legend of Zelda, where it, where Link defeated Ganondorf at the end of Ocarina of Time. And so after many years, the seal that held Ganondorf breaks, and the hero of time never came back because he was sent back to his child timeline. Oh, now I know what I was going to say. I don't know what exactly would be a good starting place if you want to get into Legend of Zelda. For me, Wind Waker was my starting place, and then Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and Phantom Hourglass. Zelda's been around for almost 40 years now, or 40 years. Everyone got into it. Like, people have been playing it since the first Zelda game. Like, Robin Williams was a big Legend of Zelda fan. He named his daughter after Zelda. So it's been around for ages. For some people, it could be the DS games. It could be the GameCube games. It was the GameCube games that got me into it. That's what I wanted to say. I don't know why I was drawing a blank on that. But yeah, because there was no hero that came, Hyrule got sealed and flooded away. It was known as the era without a hero. And I just discovered that apparently this, and I'll get into it after I talk about Wind Waker, that apparently there was like a rumored game that was supposed to take place in between Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker. I'll get into it after I talk about the Wind Waker. So I never played Wind Waker on the Wii U. I've played it on the GameCube. And what was basically started off, because I didn't know anything about Zelda lore when I played this game. I really knew nothing about it. All I knew was that the main character had to go save his sister from the clutches of Ganondorf in the Forsaken Fortress. But later on in the game, after you save your sister and defeat the giant bird that took her, we find out that Tetra, the pirate who helps you, is really Princess Zelda. And that kingdom was called Hyrule. And so this was the game that really got me into this, because I was like, I am so curious about these games. I'm very curious about the Legend of Zelda lore. This is what pushed me to like finally take Ocarina of Time seriously. But I enjoyed the sailing. To me, my favorite theme, like open world theme of a Zelda game, is probably the Wind Waker theme, the Great Sea theme. Now I know everyone's got their favorites, but the Great Sea is my favorite theme. And with this open world that you have, I just loved how like adventurous it sounded. It would get stuck in my head. But yeah, the dungeons, I enjoyed the dungeons. The dungeons were were not that hard. I think maybe the Wind Temple was like the one that used to frustrate me. The Earth Temple didn't really freak me out. Like the Shadow Temple freaks me out. Actually, no. I think I have more problems with the Tower of the Gods than the Wind Temple. But even though this is a cartoon Link, it doesn't seem as dark as Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. The fate of Hyrule is pretty dark in this game. And hey, Classy, thank you for tuning in. The fate of Hyrule before Wind Waker, the fact that Hyrule, they had to flood Hyrule, the survivors had to climb up the mountains and build a new world. Like, this was a post-apocalyptic world before Breath of the Wild, basically. Like, you had to like leave your home. Like, certain people had to survive to rebuild. And like some of the tribes, like the Zora tribe apparently evolved into the Rito tribe. Yeah, the fish people grew wings and flew. The Gorons kind of got pushed out of their mountain, because I think Dragon Roost Island is Death Mountain, or what Death Mountain was in Ocarina of Time. I mean, the Gorons are still around. They were in Phantom Hourglass, but yeah, they were basically traveling merchants in Wind Waker. The Kokiri became the Koroks. The Great Deku Tree seemed like he was still doing fine. The Gerudus, they basically, I don't know what happened to them. I guess they became pirates. They were pirates in Majora's Mask. One thing I will say, though, this had one of the best characterizations of Ganondorf. Like, some of the things that Ganondorf was saying throughout the game about, like, his people, about, like, how he's from the desert. Like, To me, this had the best development of Ganondorf of any of the Zelda games. Like that, like this is my favorite version of Ganondorf. As far as like the boss fights, I don't think were difficult. I remember the first time I played it, I struggled with the Tower. Like I said, I struggled with Tower of the Gods in general. The first time I played it, nowadays it's easy to get through. Um, it was the boss fight. Godan probably took me the longest time. Puppet Ganon was only hard once you got to his third stage. Because I remember the first two stages when he's just like a regular like bull puppet and a spider. That wasn't hard. But when he was basically the serpent, I think that was really hard. Like the way he would like move around, that was very difficult. That's fine. Look, there was a time where I wasn't really playing that much video games, but I've actually gone back into gaming. Last of Us actually helped with that. Um, because I remember after watching the Last of Us TV series, it got me to go back and replay Last of Us because when I got my PS4, I was playing I got Last of Us with it for a deal. Buy it and you get a game free. And I remember for a time I just stopped playing Last of Us, but then watching the show made me go back and play the game, and I completed the game. And obviously, with Tears of the Kingdom coming out, I just gone back into playing Legend of Zelda games. I've been replaying Breath of the Wild, which I'll talk about on this stream. But I remember like the Forsaken Fortress used to freak me out as a kid, especially the first time you play because you don't have your sword with you, and if you get caught by a moblin, you get thrown in prison. And I remember like when I used to play the demo of Wind Waker, because the Forsaken Fortress was one of the things you can do, I used to get thrown in jail into the cells a lot because as you're getting closer, those rats just like they push you out of your barrels that you're hiding in, and the moblin catches you. But Wind Waker has some of my favorite scores in a Zelda game, like as far as soundtracks go. But yeah, this game is underratedly dark. Like the post-apocalyptic world that was created, just like really, I think is does not get talked about. And to me, this is probably my third favorite Legend of Zelda game. And that's not throwing shade at Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask because I love those games. They're in my top 5. But I've replayed Wind Waker so many times. It was the Zelda game that got me into the series. This was the first Zelda game that I completed. All the heart pieces, all the treasure charts, all the upgrades, like filling up your bomb bag, your arrows. Make sure you have a big like magic meter. Make sure you get every single item that you can. Like I did everything with Wind Waker, and I always do everything because I just enjoy this game so much. Yeah, sometimes sailing from island to island can be a bit of a drag, but I just have such a great time playing this game. And I love the supporting characters that you surround Link with, the backstory of the sages, um, the fact that they used a clever way to hide the royal family by having them like become pirates. The character development of Tetra, aka Zelda, everything just works in my opinion with this game. And unfortunately, because of how the game looked, it wasn't that popular when it first came out. It's grown in popularity because, like I said earlier in the stream, Twilight Princess was actually supposed to originally be a sequel to Wind Waker. They were supposed to make Wind Waker take place like in a more grounded land, but they basically had it take place in the child timeline. Went back to the more realistic graphics, which is fine. But Phantom Hourglass, another Zelda game this became the official sequel to Wind Waker, and I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. I did enjoy this game. I personally prefer its sequel, Spirit Tracks, more. I've gone back to play Spirit Tracks more than Phantom Hourglass. The Ocean King Temple used to frustrate me, especially like I was never the brightest gamer when it came to playing video games, and I remember I used to get stuck with. I got stuck on two things with Phantom Hourglass actually. Trying to remember because it was after the Wind Temple in Phantom Hourglass. It was like my third visit to the Ocean King Temple. And you had to like stamp something on. You had to like use you had to actually close your DS and 3DS. And it took me forever to realize that. Like that was one of the biggest like mess ups I had when it came to playing a Legend of Zelda game. Um, I think the other thing that I got stuck on. So at a certain point in Phantom Hourglass, you had to. It was like the islands of the dead of ruins. It was like the last sea chart you got. That used to annoy me getting to those islands. But other than that, this game didn't really take me that long to complete, outside of maybe the two frustrating things. One thing I will say actually about Wind Waker before I continue that I just remembered, and maybe I'll do a separate stream. Actually, no, I'll do a separate stream maybe on each of these Zelda games that I played, my favorite Zelda games. This is just one on the overall franchise, and maybe I'll do one on Wind Waker. So I won't get into it, but I do know like one thing I will say is there were supposed to be more dungeons in Wind Waker than there really was, and unfortunately, when the Wii U remake came out, they never added them. But I'll get into that. Maybe I'll do a separate stream on certain Zelda games because I feel like there's a lot to say about each Zelda game, or at least like my top 5 favorite Zelda games. But yeah, Phantom Hourglass, this was a fun one. This was my first DS game as well. I like that you got to customize your ship. The Gorons are in this game. There's another new tribe that was in this game. It's just like I really enjoyed the mechanics of Wind Waker, and it just felt like such a downgrade from Wind Waker. Like with Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, like Majora's Mask did keep the same like mechanics, but it also felt like it did something new in a good way. Here, it's just not that it was bad; it just was not as good. I do appreciate and enjoy this game's sequel, Spirit Tracks. So basically, what led to Spirit Tracks was after the events of Wind Waker, Link and Tetra and her pirate crew are looking for a new land, a new Hyrule. While they were searching for new land, was happening during Phantom Hourglass. But after the events of Phantom Hourglass, they find new land, and basically there's a spirit called Malatus that was trying that was imprisoned in the imprisoned in the tower. And I will say that, like, in this game, I like that you get to play as a phantom. Zelda's spirit takes over the phantoms in the tower spirits, and I like that you can actually do more against the phantoms earlier on in the game. I don't mind the train mechanics. I did enjoy the train mechanics of the game. Another thing I appreciate is that one of the things that bugged me about the Ocean King Temple was that the Fair Hourglass prevented you from basically dying, because when you're walking in the Temple of the Ocean King, unless you're in certain spots, your life force is like getting taken away from you. It's been a while since I played Fair Hourglass, but I remember that. Well, in Spirit Tracks, at least you don't have that problem in the Tower of Spirits. But I like that we get better items in this game. I think one thing I noticed with Spirit Tracks, I feel like the dungeons didn't have as many monsters. It felt like at times. I don't know. Maybe like I gotta replay Phantom Hourglass, because I replayed Spirit Tracks many times. Like, here's the thing: when a Zelda game is very good and like I love what they do with it, I go back and replay it. I replayed Spirit Tracks many times. Phantom Hourglass, I've only replayed a few times. Maybe I need to replay Phantom Hourglass again. I still have it. I I keep all my Zelda games. I never sold them or gave them to GameStop. But yeah, maybe I need to go back and play Phantom Hourglass. But it just feels like Spirit Tracks. There was more to do. Playing the flute would get a bit frustrating. But yeah, the dungeons, I feel like they did more with the dungeons at times in this game. Melodis, the villains I wasn't crazy about in this game. Boss fights were fine for what they were going for. I felt like the boss fights were fine. Like, I'll say the DS games, the boss fights were kind of the weakest as far as like the Zelda games go. I wasn't that big a fan. Some of the boss fights were good and entertaining, but I will say I prefer the ones in Spirit Tracks more than Phantom Hourglass. So yeah, I think the last thing I'm going to talk about, I don't think I'm going to talk about the Hyrule Warrior games. I think I will talk about Breath of the Wild and talk about like what I've seen from Tears of the Kingdom so far, what looks good. So I'm going to bring this down. So Breath of the Wild, this was the Zelda game that it definitely felt like they changed things around. Hold on, what am I doing? Where they changed things around for the better. And I get it that you don't have the classic dungeon, you don't have all the classic items in the Zelda game. That threw me off at first. So I think that's kind of why for a while I still preferred Twilight Princess. And yeah, it was frustrating that at times it was easier for enemies to kill you no matter how many heart containers you had. But I love the story. I love the post-apocalyptic vibe of Hyrule. Even though you got some villages that are still standing, people are still walking around. But like Hyrule Castle, what happened to the sages, Link trying to find his memories. You learn about like Link and Zelda's friendship from like Zelda not really liking Link at first to like becoming like close friends. Link's bond with all the sages. I very much enjoyed a lot of aspects about Breath of the Wild. You had the Yiga clan. That would be frustrating at times. Find the Yiga clan. Some of the shrines were super easy. Some of the shrines were not so easy. Um, Trying to make the different food was a lot of fun. Like they did a lot of experimenting with this game, and sometimes like find the dragons were very cool to see. You have some of these dragons that are flying. Um, the open world was incredible. Some places were easy to get to. Some places were not easy to get to. To trying to think, I really had no problems with the boss fights in this game. Um, Sometimes finding the memories were a bit hard to do. I remember I didn't even know you need to have a certain amount of hearts to pull the Master Sword. The first time I had just the right amount of hearts and I was able to pull it. As far as Breath of the Wild's placement in the Zelda timeline, it feels like it could have taken place in either child or adult timeline. I'd say child. I'd say like because on one hand the locations, most of the locations seem similar to Twilight Princess's Hyrule, but at the same time you have some of the tribes that were introduced in Wind Waker, like the Kuroks, the Ritos. But the thing is the Rito tribe are coexisting with the Zoras. Like you got Zoras, you got the Ritos, and basically because of the Great Flood, the Zoras morphed into the Rito tribe. But perhaps maybe they're either some Zora survived and they morphed into something else. I honestly have no idea. I do enjoy this Age of Calamity that's like the prequel to it. But yeah, no, the shrines, some of them were easy, some are hard. I do miss the classic dungeons in this game. That I will be honest about. I don't know if Tears of the Kingdom are going to go back to that, having the more dungeon like classic dungeon feel. Um, some of the special things that you got to do, like you got the free stuff, you got to like move metal, you got different bombs, you got to freeze up water. A lot of that stuff was really cool to do in this game. There's some things that were also frustrating in this game. Not as frustrating as Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword, while I like that game, sometimes frustrated me. This, even when it got hard, never frustrated me. Um, I do make sure I have enough weapons because sometimes some of your weapons in the game, depending on what kind of weapons you had, some weapons would last longer than others. But Breath of the Wild takes place so many years after any of the games that I feel like it kind of erases the other timelines. Um, Tears of the Kingdom, I don't know like what Tears of the Kingdom are going to do because I know Ganondorf's supposedly in the game. Ganondorf's in the game, and I don't know. The sky plays a big role. We know Skyward Sword, the first game in the timeline. You know, Link and Zelda came from the sky. I know you had the city in the sky level in Twilight Princess. So I'm very curious to see like Tears of the Kingdom. You know, bring back what happened before Breath of the Wild, what may have happened in prior games like Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword. I honestly don't know. I'm very curious to see if they're going to do it. But I think like I'm definitely probably gonna do a stream on some of these games. At least my top five Legend of Zelda games. I would love to do streams solely on Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and Breath of the Wild. Definitely Tears of the Kingdom once I get a chance to play it. I would love to do a stream on that because like there's so much to talk about with certain Zelda games. Like some of them, there's not a whole lot to talk about because you're not as passionate about them, or you haven't completed them, or you haven't played them. But for some that you've replayed so many times, and you find new things, and then you see these theories that people have on some of the things, like Ocarina of Time's connection to Wind Waker or Twilight Princess. Just some of the things in Twilight Princess. I feel like Breath of the Wild is definitely could be its own stream. But as far as my top five Zelda games go, Breath of the Wild's number one. I love this game, and even though there's a lot in this game to talk about, I have a blast with it. I love the open world. So this is number one, and I love Link's story. And number one overall. Number two, Twilight Princess. One of the best versions of Link. Had great supporting characters, great dungeons, great enemies, and I like the villain Zane. Love Zane in this game. I know Gandalf was the main mastermind, but I love Zane and I love Midna. Number three, Wind Waker, the one that got me into the Legend of Zelda series, the Zelda game that I've replayed the most times. I never get sick. The first game that I completed everything in. I love the story, the backstory to how this world came to be. The dungeons are fun. The side quests are fun. The development of characters is great. This to me had like my favorite version of Ganondorf, and Wind Waker is definitely a game I'm gonna do a stream purely on. That I'm definitely gonna do a stream on because there's so much to talk about with that game. Number four and five, I feel like these are interchangeable. I'm gonna go number four, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask is a close fifth. Ocarina of Time, a game that I probably stalled the most when playing because the Shadow Temple and Bomb of the Will used to freak me out. But I love Ocarina of Time. I love because that was like the first time I saw like Hyrule Field. I saw what Hyrule was like in a Zelda game. Really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the side quests, dungeons. Had a really good soundtrack. Got to ride on Epona for the first time. And Majora's Mask, I love experimenting with the different masks. Um, Even though some of the dungeons could be frustrating and the 3 day, like to complete it before the moon falls, and that fear that okay, I might have to play the Song of Time. Can I complete a temple in the 3 day cycle? Like that stuff was very interesting. So yeah, those are my top five. And those are going to be the five games that I'm definitely probably going to do streams on in the future. I don't know when because I feel like I want to replay those games before I do streams. Maybe I'll do like maybe because Ocarina of Time it technically is like the first in the timeline out of these five. Maybe I'll do a stream on Ocarina of Time, then Majora's Mask, then Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, then Breath of the Wild. And maybe I'll do streams on other games. Maybe one day I'll go back and replay Skyward Sword because I do like a lot of things from Skyward Sword. Maybe I'll do a stream on that. But yeah, I think I'm probably gonna end it here. Um, I know this is a completely different stream from what you guys are used to. I know people are used to me talking about movies, talking about Marvel, DC, and other movie news, but I wanted to try something new on this channel because there's so much more to pop culture than Marvel and DC and Star Wars and other stuff. And I want to talk about stuff that I like. I want to reach out, see like what other people like. And this has been a stream I've wanted to do for quite some time. And I do want to do more Nintendo themed streams. Like maybe I'll do a stream on ideas for the Mario movie sequel. What Mario games could they take inspiration from? I don't know when I'm going to do that stream just yet. I actually wanted to do that stream before this one, but I felt like because Tears of the Kingdom was coming out, I wanted to talk about that. And I'm definitely, hopefully soon, by Tears of the Kingdom. From what I've seen, it looks phenomenal. The gameplay looks incredible. That's something I love about Nintendo. That they're not, even though like people say Zelda games can be formulaic, they're not afraid to change stuff up for the better. And I think for the most part they tend to do that. But yeah, I'm gonna probably end it here. And I don't know when I'll do streams for certain games because I feel like there's a lot more to say about certain games, but they will happen. And the first one I will do a stream on will be Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And I have a lot to say about that, from like taking forever to get through the Kokiri Forest to the many days it took me to get through the Water Temple and my fears of the Shadow Temple. And also like some of the things that established with Zelda lore. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna end it here. And I just want to thank you guys for checking out this stream. And I do want to do more streams in the future. I know it's been a while since I've done a stream. The last time I did a stream was a month ago on Harry Potter. I want to get back into doing more streams. I've been focusing more on movie reviews. But yeah, I'm also going to be still doing movie reviews. But yeah, thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe or rate if you haven't. Please share us with someone that's a big Legend of Zelda fan. And what's coming out this weekend? I am continuing the Transformer review series on my channel with Transformers Age of Extinction. Yes, we are at that point of the Transformer franchise. I know a stream that I am planning on doing in the next few weeks will be a more Transformer centric stream. Not just on the Transformer movies, but maybe on the 1980s cartoon, the video games we've gotten, some of the other Transformer cartoons, because there's a lot to talk about with Transformers. And maybe with that Mario stream, because I do want to do a stream on ideas for Mario sequel, maybe I'll talk about ideas that they can do for a Legend of Zelda movie. I've done an article on it for the movie nerds. I'll actually put the link to that in the chat if anyone wants to check out that. And it's kind of like me talking about how to approach a Legend of Zelda movie or a television series, because I think you can do either one very well. But yeah, I'll put a link in the chat to the Zelda article for the movie nerds. It's my friend's website that I write for. I do opinion pieces on there. I do movie reviews on there. I also do like some history on certain things. Like I wrote an article on the history of canceled Spider-Man movies, on Kevin Smith's controversial film Dogma. So yeah, if you want to check out like how I think you can approach a Zelda movie, I put the link in the chat, so please check it out. And I know this wasn't really much of a long stream, but I plan on doing longer streams again soon. I think when I'm talking about certain games in the Zelda franchise, I think those streams might be longer because I think I can go more in depth with those Zelda games. But once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this. and look forward to more Zelda themed streams and other streams on other stuff. So take care, everyone.